welcome.
Hey, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm Grayson. This is Ethan. We wore black and white to make it a little bit easier for you guys. But if you get it confused, there's no hard feelings. I respond to Ethan as well. I've been doing it my whole life. So
very good. Nice
don't
to
worry.
meet you, Ethan. Great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are extremely fascinated by Aptera. We were telling Steve that we found. I'm sorry, Chris. Rather,
You got them confused.
Yeah, I'm getting you guys confused. Sorry. We were telling Chris that we found you guys. I guess we got served your video, the 9-minute video that you did, kind of like this is Aptera on YouTube. And after that 9 minutes, we were just like extremely fascinated. And I actually pre-ordered one of your vehicles.
Nice.
Nice. We're humbled. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for everything you're doing with Aptera. And I just want to get into that.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, we see it behind you right now. It looks like an absolute spaceship. So impressive. I got to imagine when you guys are driving that thing on the street, people are stopping you left and right to ask you what you're driving.
It gets attention.
People are amazed. The interesting thing is, the wheels are covered, so when it's driving down the road and you're on blacktop, you really don't see the tires. So, from a visual perspective, you go, "Holy crap, that thing's floating! The future is here." The spaceships are upon us, and that's what you get. But really, it's the uber aerodynamics of this vehicle kind of require us to close in those wheels and make them as aerodynamic as possible. The side effect is it looks like it's floating.
Yeah, I guess that answers my second question, which is, does it fly? But I guess it just is the illusion.
If you get it going fast enough, it will fly.
Almost anything can fly, I guess.
Yeah, and the aesthetic is so nice. It obviously is built for the aerodynamics, but you've been able to make it look just so aesthetically pleasing and visually like artistic. What has that been like?
A challenge.
A challenge, like to make something with, this insane amount of aerodynamics look this good.
We think of it as styling, but the designers call it design. And so we have a very mathematical shape, but that mathematical shape doesn't translate into a consumer product very easily. So it requires a designer, in this case Jason Hill, who did the design or styling, the shape of lines, cut lines, curves, all that sort of thing, the colors, textures. It's that's what designers do, and they make something. I mean, they can even make a box desirable just by the color, the shape, the textures, and everything else. And so that's in large part Jason's work.
It's interesting when you're constrained by this aerodynamic profile, what you can really do with it. But I think it really does look stunning. The cut lines in the windows and the lighting and everything. It just all plays very well together.
Yeah, definitely. And Chris, we were talking earlier that we're both Tesla drivers at the moment. And we talked a little bit about the aerodynamics of, just other cars in general and four-wheeled cars. What is the ultimate difference between the cars that are on the road now and the Aptera as far as aerodynamics?
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize that you spend a significant amount of your fuel at highway speeds just pushing air out of the way. In a typical sedan, you're spending 60% of your energy just pushing air. So if you can make your vehicle super aerodynamic and look more like this, you can get 60% better fuel economy just because you're more aerodynamic. So we kind of started there and said, let's take the aerodynamic drag down to zero. Okay, what else can we do to make the vehicle more efficient? And it's lightweighting, it's efficient powertrain, and it's great battery technology.
And that's also how it can be a solar electric vehicle, because you've heard maybe some people recently talk about how it's not viable for a vehicle to have solar cells and that you shouldn't do it or it doesn't make any sense. And they would be right if they're talking about all other electric vehicles. The reason it really only works for Aptera is because you see the shape. It's so efficient. It uses such little energy to go per unit distance that a little bit of solar on the Aptera can go a long way, whereas on some other modern electric vehicle, it might only push it another 5 or 6 or 7 miles a day. So that's why solar works on Aptera, because it's so efficient.
So the Aptera is covered in solar panels.
182 cells, to be exact, almost 3 square meters. And if you were to arrange them in a flat panel, it would produce about 600-700 watts, something like that. But they're not arranged in a flat panel. They're broken up and they're at different angles, and sometimes they're shaded. And so when you spread all of them out on the vehicle, it produces a maximum of about, I think, 400 watts or something like that. But over the period of a day, it'll give you up to, here in, let's say, Southern California, up to about 4 kilowatt hours just from charging from the sun. So that translates into about 40 miles for our car because we burn about 100 watt hours per mile.
Wow. Which is probably like more than most people's drive to and from work.
Exactly.
The
So
the
basically-
average daily commute in America is about 31 miles. In Europe, it's about 25. So that was really kind of the breaking point for us. If we can give people more than 30 miles a day of solar charge range on average, then they would never have to plug in their vehicle again. It would just be a perpetual motion transportation device.
So that were those the mathematics that you ran before you came up with like how many watts you were trying to get out of the solar panels, or did it kind of just come about that it was like, wow, this is luckily more than the average commute?
It's a funny story. So when we were talking about solar, we built it before we built, during the beginning of the restart of the company, we actually built a solar model, a facsimile of the vehicle, and put it on the roof of our R&D shop, which was located on his property. And we collected data for about a year. But really after the first couple of days, we could see this was working. But what happened is we started with a small panel, and then when we calculated how much energy we gained through the whole day, we both looked at each other and said, wait a minute, why wouldn't we put them on the hood? Why wouldn't we put them in the back? Why wouldn't we put it on why wouldn't we cover every surface artfully and aesthetically pleasing way with solar cells? And we did. That was the connection. It's like the hood, I think, added a couple of miles per day, something like that. And we said, wait a minute, we've got much more space available. We could get 20, we did the calculation and said it was going to be close to 40 miles.
Yeah, there's even solar on the dashboard of the Aptera. So see right through the window, right down through the window, you get a lot of solar gain right in your dash. You're driving around, you're like, the dash looks pretty hot up there. Wouldn't it be great if that was producing energy for me to drive with? Well, Aptera does that. So.
And it's one of those obstacle is the way kind of things, because on our vehicle compared to a regular car, there's a lot of, the surfaces are more flat. There's more surface and they're more flat. They're more orthogonal to the sun. And we have a very large exposed dash that you wouldn't find in a typical vehicle because the vehicle is so flat. So we use that surface area to help us be even more efficient.
Wow. So it's, literally a vehicle that you never have to fuel.
For the average driver in North America, you could never have to plug it in. We have a little solar calculator on our website too that shows you, if you live in the northern states and you get less sun, maybe you'd have to plug it in once, twice a year. If you live in the southern states, the Smile states, Texas, New Mexico, California, Florida, you likely never have to plug it in. It's just a vehicle that you park outside and let the sun do all the work.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's crazy. For a lot of people, that's definitely the tipping point where they start to lean more electric. Just because I was talking to Grayson about purchasing his next car because his lease is up with his Porsche, and I drive an electric car, and Grayson was a little bit discouraged just because there's always that fear of it running out of battery, and then you have to pull over at a charging station and wait sometimes up to an hour because if someone's ahead of you in line. And
Basically, we wanted a car that we could just go anywhere with. And the Tesla it's great, but you do have to stop at charging stations along the way if you're going, more than 300 miles.
And sometimes for longer than you'd want to. So with charging the Aptera, I saw that, and then also with my Tesla for the home charger, I had to get an electrician to come out and do some sort of, I don't know what it is scientifically or the terms in wattage, but he had to do something, and we had to upgrade my electric panel at the house.
He did something, yeah.
Yeah, he did something. And he rigged up this Tesla supercharger here, so now my car can charge overnight in 8 hours, full battery.
Nice.
But
that's another cool thing about the Aptera is
Yeah.
you don't have to install any of that crazy charging stuff at your house. Overnight with just a regular 110 plug, like you'd plug your iPhone into, we can get 200 miles overnight of charge range. So you save $5,000 on the home charger, and you still get plenty of range out of your home plug. The maximum range for our vehicle is 1,000 miles. So just in the battery, you have 1,000 miles. Then you have the solar, charging it every day. And if you need to plug in at the house, you can get 200 miles overnight. So
It's from a regular plug.
Yep.
Like you plug in your cell phone.
Wow.
This is the moment where I actually feel like the future is here. Like I actually was like, wow. So just with a 110, that's like your standard wall outlet.
That you charge your iPhone with.
You get 200 miles in a night. That's insane. And so, and what is like what about like the charger up from that? If it's more than a 110, like
Yeah, you can get like the charger you probably had installed at your house to charge a lot of range into your Tesla overnight. I mean, that could give us 600 plus miles overnight. So you could really charge for long range trips.
Wow.
Wow.
So my Tesla only goes up to like, it says 300 miles, but realistically, it's probably like somewhere in the high 100s.
unless you're traveling
With the way you
downhill.
drive it.
Yeah,
Drive it like
yeah.
you stole it.
We're just revving it in ludicrous
Mode, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It has like a chill mode, but I've never really been in chill mode.
Opposite of
But-
chill mode.
Yes.
Yes, opposite of chill mode. I was also so surprised when I got my Tesla about like the acceleration. It's almost like as I think about stepping on the accelerator, it's accelerating. It's instantaneous. Whereas all the other gas cars that I've driven before, it takes a couple seconds for the engine to get oxygen and then take off. How quick is the Aptera being an electric vehicle?
Yeah, the Aptera is amazingly quick. We actually have in-wheel motors, so the motors are in the wheels. In your Tesla, there's a motor in the middle of the vehicle. It goes to a transaxle, which is a bunch of gears, and then spits it out to drive shafts to actually go to the wheels. There's universal joints on the wheels too. Every bearing, every gear that you have in a system like that is a loss. So we want the most efficient powertrain possible. So we actually took the motors and put them actually in the wheels. So it's driving power straight to the wheels. There's no gears, there's no drive shaft, there's no universal joints. It's just straight power straight to your wheels. What that does, it gives you a lot of torque too, because our motors are a lot bigger. So we have amazing acceleration times, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, for a vehicle that
Beats
you
my
can
car.
get for, under $30,000. There's no combustion, there's no vehicle you can buy for under $30,000 that has that kind of acceleration. So we think we're in a really unique class where we're not only the most efficient vehicle in the world, but it's also not a slouch. It'll hang with the Teslas, it'll hang with other vehicles out there.
Certainly faster than my Bolt.
I mean, it's faster. I drive a Porsche Panamera, and I believe it's like 4 seconds, 0 to
Yeah.
60. It's not the souped up one though, but
So if you were sitting at a stoplight and a spaceship pulled up next to you, you would expect
I'm not trying
it
to
to be
race
faster
it.
than
I'm
you.
not
right?
going to race
That's-
it.
That's what you'd expect.
But I think your point about driving is exact, because people, the first time they drive an electric car, and then after they own one for a while, you become addicted to this sort of instantaneous response. Like everything is working right. You get in a friend's car, your spouse's car, and it's a gas vehicle. It feels like there's a rubber band connected from your foot, to the.
Yeah.
That is what it feels like. And to me, when I drive the Tesla versus when I drive my car, I feel safer with that instantaneous response on the accelerator, because say I'm in a merge lane and someone comes in, they're not trying to let me in, and I have to go in front of them, or I have to surpass a vehicle for one reason or another. I can do that as I think about it. With the gas carts, like in my car, I sometimes will press the gas to try to get in front of someone or get myself out of something, and there's a second or two of delay, and sometimes at highway speeds, like a second is a lot. It's a lot of distance. So, like I do feel safer in Ethan's electric car because of that, and I want to get into the safety of the Aptera, because that was like one of the first questions that came up in my mind. Is I watched this video, and before you got to the part where you explain the vehicle safety, I was so curious. I was like, everything I've ever heard about a 3-wheeled vehicle has been that, they're dangerous. You hear about Can-Ams and stuff. They're very closely related to motorcycles. And how does this compare to other 3-wheeled vehicles as far as safety goes?
Yeah, I mean, vehicle dynamics, equal safety. The more responsive your ride is, the better the braking, the quicker the acceleration, it can be a safer vehicle. But in a 3-wheel platform, it's really all about weight distribution. So keeping the weight over the front wheels, or all-wheel drive has torque vectoring, so you can have some pretty amazing stability control with the vehicle. And we have this composite monocoque structure where the whole vehicle, is this egg around you. The vehicle is your helmet all around your body. And it's built like a Formula One car or, a Cirrus aircraft, much more than, typical automotive because of our resin-infused composite structures. And it's amazingly safe. In previous tests, we had amazing roof crush strength and side impact. We had the highest roof crush strength of any passenger car on the road. All with this, package we have behind us. So, we feel strongly that passenger safety is of utmost importance, and we think that the way people are building steel and aluminum vehicles could be done a lot better if they would switch to composites like us. So we feel great about our path to production with a very safe and stable vehicle, one that's responsive and will keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, the stability is really, it's the key. Yes, there will be traction control and stability control and algorithms to make use of all three motors. But even without that, the vehicle needs to be, and it is, a stable platform. And we were just at the track last week doing the Moose test, which went great. I don't know if you know what that is, but I think you...
What's a Moose test?
40-something miles an hour, and you have to make a sudden turn like you're dodging a moose. I guess it was invented.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe I think Volvo probably originated this test, some years ago. But at the time, it was a common cause of accidents because the vehicle would lose control in such a sudden high-speed swerve. So we did that test. We did some 8th mile racing, 0 to 60, and all very good results. We've got video of it soon, and it's going to be published. But I would say seeing the stability firsthand, especially of this new vehicle, is absolutely awe-inspiring.
Yeah, controlling a vehicle that's 2,000 pounds is a lot different too. So, your Tesla, it weighs a lot. So, having the vehicle dynamics in something that weighs so much is a lot more of a challenge. So our lightweight chassis, our composite structures, we have airbags just like typical passenger cars. So, we think we've got a great mix for people to make them feel safe and in control when they're driving the Aptera.
But because it's the use of composites, it does allow us to build more structure than we'd be able to with a steel car with less weight. So, and the fact that we only have 3 wheels instead of 4, so there's less weight, there's lower drag. Lower drag means that there's less energy needed. Less energy means there's less batteries or fewer batteries needed. And so it's like a waterfall effect. You can stop at shorter distances. Your brakes don't have to be as big. You're only moving around 1,700, 1,800 pounds versus 5,000 pounds in your electric car.
Yeah.
It's all about the weight and efficiency that makes it safe too.
Yeah, I think safety was something that came into mind when I first saw the Aptera, just because it does look, to the eye, it looks a little bit smaller than, the average car that you'd see on the road. But as I continue to watch, the video that you guys put out, I learned that wasn't true either. Everything that I had, every doubt about, this car that I had in my head was completely debunked. Yeah. Can you talk about the space? Because I was so just amazed how spacious the vehicle is as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see pictures of the vehicle, and because it's so striking in its appearance, I think most people assume it's small, but it's not. It's as wide as a Ford F-150 pickup truck, and it's as long as a Prius. So, it actually has a pretty amazing amount of space. When you sit in it, you're not super close to your neighbor. It's not smart car-ish. It is, elbow room. There's plenty of space inside. And in the rear, you fold the seats forward, and you actually have 7 feet from the tail storage all the way to the back of the seat. So you can put in, an 8-foot surfboard. You can put in all your snowboard gear. You can actually sleep 2 people and a dog.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a taller individual, even you could sleep in this car comfortably.
Yep. Well, even more comfortably with the tent. So there's a tent feature that zips around the top when you open up the back. So you have lots of headroom in there. It's quite nice.
So you drive to your camping destination 300 miles away. You camp for 4 days. You leave with more charge than you had when you got there. You were able to charge your laptop and your film gear and cook some breakfast in the morning in your conduction cooktop. And then you just pack it up and go home, It's,
There's a conduction cooktop?
No, there's just bring it.
Oh.
There's an outlet.
I was going to say, okay, yeah, that would just be.
You lost him for a second.
I would say, this vehicle's, under $30,000, and it's almost like a home as well. You can't be stranded in it. You can live wherever. I mean, Grayson and I, we bought a Mercedes Sprinter a little bit over a year ago, and we converted it into a tiny home.
Oh, nice.
And just driving that thing across country, it was so spacious and built for it, but it still was such a struggle.
Yeah, stopping for gas, obviously that's no brainer. But I think the hardest part about camping in it was we didn't have a heater built into it, and we couldn't run the heat overnight because God forbid there's a leak,
Carbon monoxide.
The exhaust. So we ended up in Keystone, Colorado. We left from Los Angeles, ended up in Keystone, Colorado, and we decided this is a good place to sleep. So we pulled into a lodge parking lot, and I woke up an hour and a half later with my face rock solid. I'm freezing.
The interior of the vehicle was 9 degrees Celsius. My face was frozen off.
Yeah.
But had it been an Aptera, an electric vehicle, you can keep the heat on, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get stranded in it. You can't freeze in it.
That's
And,
amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. The
Yeah.
tent thing sounds like something we got to definitely give a shot.
And then one more feature I want to go over. So I saw that you guys have a feature on one of your models that accommodates for dogs, and that interested me. We just got a puppy.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a little retaining net wall that goes up, and a little set of stairs, so the dog can get in the back. A little pad to go over the back. But yeah, we
Yes.
have a lot of people that are pet fans. I've got a dog. It's
Any
Yeah.
creature with legs, I suppose.
any
not just
creature with
dog,
legs. Yeah. I mean,
Any creature with legs.
Your kimono dragon, your
Yeah.
llama, maybe. Lots of. Lots of.
Do you have a ferret? Although a ferret might be able to slither through the net. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, you're not
but that-
containing a ferret. That's
No, that's awesome. I definitely have to go on a camping trip with my puppy for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, what we really see the Aptera as kind of a platform that gives you freedom that a lot of other vehicles don't give you. The freedom to not have to plug in because the sun's taking care of that charge. The freedom to, go to places you maybe normally wouldn't go because you have the range to go there. You don't have to worry about finding a plug when you're there because the solar is going to charge your vehicle when you're there. So, we think that the freedom aspect of the Aptera and what it enables is a really, really interesting component for the people that have kind of an adventurous streak in them, for sure.
Even for non-adventurous people, but like you said yourself, that you had the anxiety about running out of charge. The idea that other electric vehicles, you're tethered somehow, you're restrained somehow with lots of other electric vehicles, and so we wanted to focus on how do we give people freedom? How do we not do what every other EV manufacturer is doing, and instead give people something even more, give them freedom to, like you just said so eloquently, drive when you want to go where you want to go, not have to plug it in, not be tethered.
You've probably been at the supercharging station sometimes too with your Tesla. At its supercharging station like that, we could charge 200 miles in 10 minutes. So, it's super fast charging. Not constricting as some other vehicles maybe. I know I've spent a lot of time at superchargers, so
Yeah.
it's great when you
Tesla,
can play games and watch videos on your thing, but it's much better to get on with life.
Yeah, you definitely want to get on the road.
Definitely, yeah.
So does the Tesla charger, is it adaptable? Does it go into the Aptera?
Yeah, the Tesla charge, they have destination chargers and a supercharger network. It's a whole thing that's proprietary to Tesla. We hope that we can form a partnership along the way that maybe benefits both. But it's there's lots of kind of charging standards out there, and the Aptera works with all of them. J1772, CHAdeMO, CSS, all those. You just need little plug adapters on the end of your plug.
Yeah.
Cool.
Plug and
Okay.
stuff.
We're used to those with the way Apple keeps upgrading their stuff. What you guys said about the freedom thing, that's really awesome, and it's really awesome that you're giving people the opportunity to have this adventurous freedom for under $30,000 as well. That's something that I feel like is very discouraging when trying to be environmentally friendly and purchasing an electric vehicle. They're all oftentimes at a price range. But for you guys making it more of an everyday driver for as many people as possible, I truly believe that's what the planet needs.
Well, that's the key. I mean, that's the key to making them realistic, isn't it? I mean, that's it exactly. If it's so expensive that it needs like government programs to make people buy it, then it's not really sustainable. It's artificial. It's enforced by tyranny or artificial means. If it's something that you can afford and something you desire, and we're making vehicles like that, then we won't have any problem getting millions of people in electric vehicles. And so the other part of freedom that we didn't talk about is its affordability. And that is because of the efficiency. So the efficiency is really the tool that we use to deliver freedom, affordability, range, autonomy, all that stuff.
Yeah, most people don't realize that the most expensive part of your electric vehicle is the battery. So if you can make your vehicle really efficient and use less battery, you're going to have a cheaper vehicle. So that's just what we do. We use 4 times less energy than the average EV. So we have a battery that's a quarter of the size of the typical EV. So, instead of a $20,000 battery pack, we have a $5,000 battery pack. And that trickles down to the cost of the vehicle. You got a $5,000 battery pack, you wrap a really nice $10,000 vehicle around it, and there you go. You got a cost of $15,000. You can make money by selling that for under 30. The equation gets a lot tougher when you have to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack to run something like an EV pickup truck. That's a lot of batteries. Those batteries are really expensive. Oh, now the battery pack costs $60,000, and we spent $30,000 on the pickup truck. Now we got to sell it for $150,000, $170,000 to make any money. It prices people out, and we don't think that that's what is going to make the world a more efficient and better place over time. We think it's people that can buy vehicles for less than the average cost. The average cost is $41,000 for a vehicle in North America now. So, our base vehicle is $25,900. So a little over $25,000, and you can be in an Aptera and charging from the sun and, picking your kids up from school and solar electric vehicle goodness and, doing your part.
That's really awesome.
And I just want to let you know, I'm not texting here. We actually have a PowerPoint that we've made about you guys.
Oh, nice.
So I'm just referring to that really quickly because I want to get into your backgrounds in efficiency and environmentally friendly, I guess, practices and innovations. Chris, you were the former CEO of Flux Power and founder, correct? Which was an advanced lithium battery technology company that reduced carbon emissions in industrial spaces by over 1,000 tons per year, which is, to me, it sounds like an amazing statistic, but I wanted to ask you, what exactly is a CO2 emission and what does it do
to the environment?
To the environment, because a lot of people, you hear about CO2 emissions and stuff, but I think it's, to me, a question that I had.
It's something that we can't see, so I feel like it's, people are, somewhat desensitized to the concept. So what exactly do CO2 emissions do to the planet?
Yeah, I was doing the boat stuff, and then the boat stuff evolved to the battery stuff, and the more that we can shift away from fossil fuels and burning things, the less CO2 emissions we put in the air, and it really is devolved into that. When you're processing things, or you're burning things, or you're changing things from one state to another, through burning them, you end up releasing a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, and it has disastrous effects that trickle down to everything that we do in life, from the weather, the storm patterns, to what we eat. Everything in the carbon cycle, has a cost. So reducing our carbon emissions is a great start to making for a better future for all of us. And burning gas, it's the sad part about burning gas is that you only get 27% of the energy out of the fuel that you burn. So to us, it just seems terribly inefficient. Like, shit, you want to get all the energy out of that gas. Like, if you're going to burn it, at least get something for it. So it's a shame to do something so inefficiently and then have a carbon byproduct and noxious emissions that are just devastating to the environment and, our global home, right? We want to keep this safe for our kids and grandkids and, generations to come. So,
Basically, the carbon that we're burning now is sequestered out of the environment, for tens of millions of years, hundreds of millions. And now we're releasing it all back out into the environment by burning fuels, much, much quicker than it was taken out. And so, maybe in thousands of years it would equalize, but in the meantime, it might make the Earth really, really, really hot. And so that's why scientists around the globe are concerned about CO2 and its ability to increase the amount of heat that's absorbed in the upper atmosphere. So if we can just restrict what we release, then we at least stand a chance of not screwing up that big mechanism.
Burning fuel is the easiest kind of leap, I think, for people to make to CO2 emissions, because they're like, oh, I see smoke. I see smoke from you burning. It comes out of your tailpipe, so that turns into CO2. But it really is a trickle down for everything that you use, because everything has a manufacturing cost. From the threads you wear to the food you eat to everything was processed, and it took energy to do that, and that energy typically turns into carbon and emissions somewhere. So the Aptera uses a quarter of the battery pack that other electric vehicles would use. That means that we can build 4 vehicles with the same amount of materials it would take to build 1 other electric vehicle. So when you're thinking about the input cost of the things that you use in life, try to pick things that are either reused or recycled or use drastically less content than other things out there. That's really the way to help the planet. And
Yeah, it's all down to the products we buy, and that's something that I kind of realized in the last year of my life, and have made a conscientious effort to, be more careful about what I'm purchasing, and that's why I decided to buy an electric car, and it just makes me more excited to finally be able to drive an Aptera.
it's not easy. The information is not easily attained out there, and there's lots of counter information that isn't clear and isn't easy to follow. But I would say just that the easiest steps to take are reuse, recycle, and try to buy things that have the least amount of impact with the material they bring together to make that product.
I think more and more people are doing like you're doing, though. They shop their values. They align with. They spend their money on things and organizations and companies that are at least maybe aligned with their values, or at least not opposite of their values. And so I think that's more common now.
Definitely. And as I've gotten into more environmental studies and just things that I'm reading and researching companies like yours, and we've also gone vegan and learned about all the environmental benefits that diet brings. I've kind of been scared about some of the information I've read about what's going on in the world and how it's polluting our environment and could potentially ruin our earth, and our ocean is at a great stake too. So I'm 21 years old, and I'm a ways away from having a family and starting a family, but it's something that I definitely have plans of doing. I would love to bring kids into this world, but I can't help but kind of be a little bit nervous about that. What does their future hold, and what shape is this planet that we live on now going to be in if we keep treating it this way, for my kid when he's my age or she's my age. So I'm a little nervous, and I was wondering, is there anything that made you nervous? Was there some information that you read that stands out that you realize, I want to do something to better this planet and conserve energy?
Like the way you're doing with that, Aptera.
Yeah.
When
Decided to start the company, I'm an electrical engineer by training. And so when we electrical engineers, you design a circuit, any kind of circuit that's a power circuit, let's say, one of the first things you do is you're either given an efficiency or you try and make it as efficient as possible. It's real simple. If you can use 1 transistor instead of 2, if you can use 1 watt instead of 5 watts, you want to do that because this is better for the product. Less materials, less cost, less weight. And so my mind has always worked that way. When I looked at converting an electric car before we started Aptera, I was puzzled why everyone that had converted one only got 20 or 30 miles range. This was maybe early 2000s. And so I did some digging and found out it's really simple. Its weight is a big one, but it's mostly drag at high speeds. And that all of the energy, half of the energy, I should say, at high speeds is used just to push the air out of the way. And so from electrical engineer's perspective, my mind, I reason that it's like modern cars are more closely designed to furniture than what they should be designed. They're designed as a styling exercise, not as what it needs to be, like an airplane would be. And that was sort of the light switch that went on in me and said, look, if you wanted to make electric vehicles viable and most efficient as possible, you really have to rethink what the shape is. And the shape should be dictated by low drag. It should not be dictated by styling. And so that was I think the shift in understanding of efficiency that became the start of the company, is to say, look, we have to build a fleet of vehicles all around the premise of the lowest drag shape possible, rather than some block That's a styling exercise that wastes half of its energy to push the air out of the way.
Yeah. And so I'm also wondering, because I want to get into, even maybe before you had thoughts of like what Aptera could be in electric vehicles. Steve, you also founded Fam Grow. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Which is a sustainable food growing. I want to get into that because that's fascinating to me as well.
Yeah, let's start. Yeah, it's from what we've read, it's I believe multi-level indoor gardening essentially, and the growth of leafy greens for food without using soil and 90% less water than is normally used.
That's right. It got started, again, from a hobby. I mean, I love food. I love cooking food, talking about food, eating food, growing it, etc.
Likewise.
And when I travel around the world, even if I'm using like Google Translate or something, I'll just start a conversation with the taxi driver or whatever about food. Because you can talk about it. You can't talk about politics, religion, or other stuff, but you can always talk to people about food, especially me. So I was growing kale in my garden, and my daughter loved to play in the garden, hide and seek. At the time, she was 2. And at the same time, I couldn't eat the kale because there were too many aphids and other things on it. And I wouldn't use pesticide because she played in it. And so I was like, well, how am I going to grow this and keep the bugs off without using pesticide? So I read about hydroponics. I built a little setup, and most people at the time were growing pot with hydroponics. I was growing lettuce and kale. And
what exactly are
stuff
hydroponics?
in my garage, and the light went on because of my background in engineering with alumina and making DNA and thinking about scale and orders of magnitude reduction in materials and things like that. And the light went on to say, well, okay, well, how do I take this plant and spread it in X and Y and Z and make it as dense and use the least amount of light and least amount of water? And I wrote a business plan and got it funded and built a demonstrator. And I think we raised about $7 or $8 million at the time. We had a functioning farm in Carlsbad, and we sold to Whole Foods and a couple of other local wholesalers. But it was a very capital-intensive industry, and as you see, there's been some big players in it recently. And it's difficult industry because you're still competing with low-cost produce grown just across the border that's just as good. So we ended up moving to Abu Dhabi kind of as a separate thing, but to work for the royal family doing this ag tech deal flow, managing their ag tech investment fund, and built all kinds of farms over there to really show how it would work in that region. And we developed revenue streams in Singapore, export revenue streams, Hong Kong. We were able to grow produce there and ship it all over the world. I think agriculture is such a deep, it's not my industry, right? I'm an electrical engineer, but I learned a lot about it in the short time I was in it. And it's a problem with lots of problems. It's a field, I should say, with lots of problems, but lots of opportunities, lots of challenges. And the solutions are not as straightforward as they would appear, because there's all these other layers to the agriculture business, the distributors and relationships and things like that. So it's not as straightforward as one would think to try and make a big impact.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you could grow with hydroponics, with less than 1% of the same amount of water and, beautiful leafy greens and stuff that my kids love to eat. And, he's humble, but, he built the largest advanced hydroponics farm in the world. And the technology that was enabled by that, is technology, some that we're using for Aptera today.
But funny story, we did end up, when we became USDA organic certified in the Middle East, we actually ended up going back full circle to soil, but in little soil cups, and the plant growing in there. And that's because to get that, the organic microbial breakdown of the nutrients that's required for the organic certification can't be done in an inert media, it has to be done in soil. So we were actually importing, and then later importing soil from U.S. so we get these big cargo planes. I'm sure it was a terrible carbon footprint to import soil and fertilizer from the U.S. into the Middle East, but it was enough to demonstrate it and get it started. But the plants actually benefit a lot from soil. There's all kinds of mechanisms that are occurring with mycorrhizae and other fungi that I don't think scientists even fully understand yet. So there's a lot more going on in soil than people give it credit for. Good stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, because we're plant-based, and I'm, I don't know enough about soil and stuff either, and that's where I'm getting all my foods from.
I do know that leafy greens are the most nutrient-dense foods that you can offer your body. So that's amazing.
Yeah, they are. And what I found about just the produce space and growing like these large scale, I mean, we're harvesting 1,000 pounds of basil, 1,000 pounds of kale a day, and this stuff has a shelf life of hours, not months or weeks. And so all the chain, the supply chain has to be perfect. All the cold chain, getting it clean, package, everything to the customer, and then the customer has to buy it. But what I found is that we live in a bubble here, in the U.S. and North America. But you go outside of the world, or outside of that bubble, and most people think like lettuce and leafy greens, like those are luxuries. Like they want potatoes, they want peppers, they want rice, they want lots and lots of calories. And so the places where there's malnourishment, not enough calories, the governments and the populations they're not looking for leafy greens. Those are, or microgreens, they're looking for different solutions. And so I viewed the indoor farming as a sustainable way to kind of decorate our plate, but I don't think we're saving lives with lettuce. We're not feeding people that are hungry. We're giving them good nutritious food, of course, but they do need other things in their diet that other than what vertical farming can produce.
Diet's a big impactor for sure.